Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and I hope all of you are having a fantastic Friday because we have a great show planned for you where the entire show dedicated to everything graphics, computers, anything CGI, because we have the one, the only, our regular correspondent here, Mr. Dariush Derakhshani. And it's been about 2 months, so, we've missed him dearly. I'm looking forward to talking with him, and, we, of course, have a lot to discuss when it comes to, when it comes to computer graphics. So obviously, NVIDIA came out with a new card, AMD, just on the cusp. I'm sure that they're waiting for, of course, CES, the trade show, to fully announce what they have planned, but... it's an exciting time for graphics, and maybe a lot of you have been thinking about or have already purchased your ideas of or purchased your gifts for yourself as far as it goes with graphic cards. So we're going to bring him on here in just a moment, and before we let him on the air, Dariush, how you doing? All right, perfect. So you sound good. Everyone else couldn't hear that, but if you're all set to go, you sound good. And hey, we can see you now. So let's go ahead and turn you on. So I was just introducing the show. I guess real quick. ComputerAmerica.com. Everyone, go check it out. Everything that we do here. Now, that voice that you will be hearing in just a moment is none other than Dariush Derakhshani. Many, many accolades to his name. Longtime Computer America correspondent, and of course, all around, graphics expert. He is the guy that we turn to whenever new cards are released or new technologies put into place or outlandish claims. Which actually, I have a story I need to go dig up for you, Dariush. But hey, how you doing? Welcome back on.
Thanks for having me. Always good to be on.
Yeah, our pleasure, our pleasure. So, and by the way, I've been telling everyone on Skype this, whoever joins us on Skype, there's a new feature. I don't know if you've noticed with Skype. It's actually pretty darn cool, where you can turn on real-time live subtitles. Oh, Dariush, can you hear me?
Yep. Oh, here we go.
All right, perfect.
Sorry for the technical issues this morning. Computers.
Yeah, I know. You have to pour your coffee on your computer, otherwise it just won't wake up.
Absolutely, exactly right.
Yep. So, So we're using Skype, and hopefully everyone out there who can see it, well, you'll be able to see Dariush and subtitles. It'd be pretty cool. So. Let's see. So let's before we get started, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Dariush, and we'll discuss everything as far as what you do and your background and why you like graphics so much. I mean, why is this such a field of either passion, or does it just pay the bills really well?
I don't know if it pays the bills really well, but it certainly does take care of them. I've been in graphics a really long time. I studied architecture as an undergraduate and moved on to animation as a graduate student, and just fell in love with 3D animation back in '95. And I've always loved computers. I built my own computer. My first computer was a 286 that I built, I don't know, I guess in early college or late high school. Mm-hmm. So yeah, my first graphics computer was an Apple II GS, and it had 4 colors, which was groundbreaking. Or maybe it was 16 colors. Yeah, that's what it was. It had 16 colors.
Lavish
at that time. So yeah, moving up from one of those green monochrome computers, coming off an Apple IIe to the 2GS was groundbreaking. So I remember playing with painting program called Dazzle Draw, and then moving into Corel and Print Shop and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been a hobby of mine, and I've been fortunate to make a living at it ever since. So
Very cool.
yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
Yep, absolutely. And I think a good way to, of course, kind of jump into our conversation that we can have here would be the very obvious. And well, this happened, let's see. So this was an article November 26th, so we're about 2 weeks out from it. But I can think of no one better to have this conversation for the first time on the air. Dariush, have you seen the new trailer for The Lion King?
I've seen little bits here and there, but not the newest one. This is the live action, and
See,
a friend of mine's been on the crew for that for quite a while. So I'm curious about how it's going to look in the theater.
Okay, now here's the thing, and everyone, we're going to throw, we are, of course, going to throw the, and by the way, we can definitely hear you type, so I'm going to try my best to kind of mute you when you do that, but in the meantime, Dariush, you mentioned that, your friend's on it. That's great. That's awesome. It's pretty cool. But you said live action. And this has been a sticking point for a lot of people on the internet. How did they train the lion cub to do that? How much of this is rendered in post and stuff like that? Like, my question is, when it comes to this film, and we're going to show the trailer, I'm sure we're going to be sued by Disney here any minute now, but it looks gorgeous. I mean, the creatures of the savannah look amazing, but at the same time, Disney loves that people are calling it live action, but this is very clearly a very well animated film.
Really say it's photoreal CG, or it's a little stylized, but it definitely does go for a real sensibility in how it looks, and it's pretty remarkable. The reason I say it's live action is because it's such a big departure from the original. Obviously, the
for sure.
2D, yeah. But yeah, it's meant to make you feel like it's real. But obviously, it's animated.
Yeah, obviously, I don't think they can get these animals to do anything like that. But live action can also, I guess, kind of entail that there were actors who were wearing motion capture to do some of these moves. Yeah. I mean, just to do a project like this, obviously, this is completely CGI, but how much of it is really, rendering everything from, because I think I saw some of the behind the scenes, and they went through great strides to actually animate these things. And you could speak to, kind of this technique, but they actually built skeletons for every animal, and then they used them as, I guess, kind of forms of puppets. I mean, how common is that? And I guess Disney, being the giant company that they are, how impressive is what you're seeing in the trailer, as opposed to maybe what you've worked on before?
It's pretty impressive. There's there's a lot that goes into creating just a single character. It takes months and months of development to get one character modeled and to get fur on it and get it set up with a skeleton for animation. There's lots and lots of people that basically work on it. Traditionally, the setup starts with a concept design where they start drawing out what the character is going to look like. Obviously, they have lots to work with in terms of reference of real lines and so forth. And they just build all of these from scratch. There isn't a place you can go to and download a real looking lion or anything like that. So it's a tremendous amount of effort and work by hundreds of people over the course of probably 2.5 years, give or take, to bring something like this to fruition. It's very similar to a regular 3D animation, like a Kung Fu Panda, for example.
Right.
It's just a little bit more complicated in its look, When you create a style like a Shrek or a Kung Fu Panda or an Up kind of look, that's a little bit different. It's more cartoony, but the same sort of procedures go into it. It's just the style of the look is a little bit different. So as opposed to a cartoon
So
look,
yeah.
this is more of a photographic look.
So we have discussed the idea of the uncanny valley. It's you animate something, and if it looks just a little bit off or not close enough, your brain's going to pick it apart and go, "What's wrong?" It can really pull
Right.
you out. It's distracting. Do you think that this could have that effect on people? Because obviously, you look at Simba and you look at a baby, you look at a lion cub. It's pretty good. Obviously, we're not perfect yet when it comes to fur and things like that.
Right.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's meant to look, as you said, realistic. Do you think that's a mistake by Disney to not go stylized, or I mean, is this still going to be, I guess, kind of fun enough for everyone?
Well, just in case Disney is listening, Disney makes no mistakes. Now that we've got that out of the way, um, I don't know. I think there's a trend for creating some, like the new Mary Poppins, and there's a number of properties that are kind of being redone in a new sort of way to breathe life back
And just
into
real
that
quick,
franchise.
something I heard about that's actually written in Disney's will that every one of his, every one of his franchises have to be re-released every 20 years. Fun fact, he wants
Wow.
every new generation to have their own version of his work. Either that or he doesn't want the copyright to run out. Either one, we are going to be seeing these every 20 years. So Mary Poppins makes perfect sense. But that's an aside.
Yeah.
Go forward.
Yeah, that does make sense. I don't know that I didn't know that for a fact.
Hmm.
But yeah, that makes a lot of sense that these are all coming back around. I think it's interesting. Generationally, we saw The Lion King differently than my son is going to see this one.
Yeah.
I think he'll be more engaged with this one than he would have been with the original, and that's just because the look of animation and the definition of a feature film animation is a little bit different than when what it was when I was younger. So as I think Disney has something really special with The Lion King,
Hmm.
and just the amount of expertise and craft and art that goes into making this look the way it does is great. Now, you mentioned the uncanny valley. Looking at a freeze frame of this, I can tell it's not a real lion.
Right.
It doesn't bother me. I think the uncanny valley is more bothersome when it's trying to simulate a real person, when we get kind of repulsed because it looks like a dead inside sort of zombie. But I think characters and animals tend to be a lot more forgiving. So I'm not repulsed by seeing the line the way it is now, like I would be when I'm looking at Alita, the Battle Angel, which I don't know if it's out or if it came out or if it's going to be out. It's been delayed so many times.
Hmm.
But whenever I look at Alita, I get a little ugh,
Oh,
because it's
I,
yeah.
I remember seeing the previews for that, and she has the massive eyes, which are obviously, a stylistic
manga
choice and
style.
manga
Yeah,
style.
exactly.
But yeah, that one made me squirm in my seat when I saw that preview. That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. And funny enough, my kid who's 12, he didn't squirm in his seat, and he's like, "Yeah, that looks cool." So I don't know if the uncanny valley is shifting, or if he saw it for what it was, which is basically a comic book type character coming to life,
Hmm.
and didn't really look at it as, oh, they're trying to be real people. I'm not so sure I can get to the nuance of that argument with him at this point, but
Right.
yeah, it's interesting. The generational torch is gone, from our hands. at least my generation's hands.
You know, and of course, there's nothing wrong with art changing and graphics changing and things
Absolutely.
like that. It's there's going to be a lot of graphical innovations, and there's another article I want to bring up. Unfortunately, borders on politics, but we'll try to keep it as agnostic as possible. But to keep it on the Lion King just for a moment, to settle this debate that's already raged and burned through the internet and probably died down. In your professional opinion, it's not live action. It's just really well animated. And really, I guess you could consider something like Avatar, which, I guess look-wise is pretty similar. You'd consider,
Right.
I guess, Avatar something closer to live action than you would.
Right,
Like-
because the majority, I wouldn't say the majority, but a significant part of the acting was done by people.
Yeah.
Live action was a significant portion of Avatar, so I see that as a live action film. This is a fully animated film. I don't know if there's human characters that are going to be in this, like there was
Probably not.
in the Jungle Book, for example. But the lines are definitely blurred. But I would definitely call this a photographic animation or photoreal and feature animation, as opposed to just. But it's animated. The movements are going to be a little bit more animation style as opposed to realistic.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of interpretation that happens in movement when you're animating versus capturing emotion exactly the way it happens.
Right, but I'm sure Disney is going to make it look gorgeous. But all right, so there's that one, and again, it did port on graphics. Maybe we should have had you on right when that debate was happening. But either way, thank you for commenting on that. So the other article, I need to find it. I found it, and then I quickly navigated away from it. But I figured it's a pretty interesting idea. So. Last time you were on, and I'm sure a couple times before, we discussed the ability to edit video. There has been, and I just have another one, but the ability to make someone look like they're saying one thing that they never said before, and not just in audio, but in video, to do that. So there was a video that President Trump did with a reporter admitting that he had essentially fired one of his employees for doing something like that. Anyways, long story short, he's going back and saying that footage was doctored. So my question to you, it's not so much about, I'm not asking you comments on anything political, but rather the ability to disprove if something's been edited, because we've proven that it's possible. We don't know any exact situations where it's happened in real life and it's happened in the real world, but do we have the ability to 100% say that didn't happen to this footage, or has that come to pass that we just kind of don't know now?
That's a really excellent question. Really excellent question, and I'm not sure how to answer that. I think there will be people, experts that might be able to discern that easier than people who are not experts in graphics. So I might be able to look at that, me among many, I'm sure. Might be able to look at that and say, this doesn't look right, that doesn't look right, this is probably doctored. We were having this argument way back when with photos and photo retouching and editing. And I remember a photo going around the internet around 9/11, where somebody, photoshopped an airplane heading to the World Trade Center, and I was able to tell and look at it and say, yeah, that looks pretty fake. But there was a lot of buzz, and it was on the news and on the radio, and people were talking about, is this a photo, right?
That's kind
before,
of
stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's kind of unfortunate, because especially with an event as big as 9/11, everyone's grasping for information. Anyone's looking for
Absolutely.
anything. So just a very quick photo can go viral, and the damage is done before you can even say, oh, that looks fake. It's already real to most people who've seen it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's really easy to to get something and then just pass it on to all your friends and, oh, take a look at this, without really editing it, without really looking at it and
Yeah.
saying, we're not journalists, we're just civilians. But it's almost at a point where we all have to take a little bit of that journalistic integrity and be like, well, I don't think this is true, so I'm not going to pass it on. Or at least I'm going to pass it on and say, hey, look at this, I think it's fake, let's talk about it. So, there's going to be different opinions. And if an opinion helps you with how you see the world, you're going to tend to go with that opinion a little bit more. I mean, heck, there are people who still think the Earth is flat. So
Yeah, I was going to bring that one up.
It's a hard
too.
thing to argue.
Yeah, of course, now that the technology is out there, anyone can cast out saying, "Oh, I didn't really say that." And there's always a get out of jail free card. But you're right. I remember having, and that's still one of my most infuriating interviews I've ever had here on the show. I will say, was a couple of young directors who made a film to essentially put onto film the conspiracy. Yeah, sure. I'll send it. And by the way, it was an old article that but from August. But yeah, sure. I'd love to. But and we'll put that in the show notes. But yeah. So 1 second. Yeah. So one of my most infuriating interviews was, in fact, a couple of guys who were actually putting to film the idea of, we really didn't go to the moon. We didn't really, and that was so, like I asked them point blank. I was like, do you feel any kind of, any kind of awkwardness to maybe give people a more fleshed out idea, give them a few more ideas to further deny something that is an obvious truth. And they felt no guilt at all. They were like, oh no, this is just fun. No one's ever going to believe this. No, blah, blah, blah. And, it's, it was super annoying that they, and trust me, they really did their homework. It was a very well put together film, but, that was a ride.
Yeah. There was a couple of filmmakers a while ago that created a VFX film of a big jumbo jetliner landing on the 405 freeway here in Los Angeles that made quite a bit of a splash as well. That kind of stuff is fun. It is absolutely fun. Mm-hmm. You think back to Orson Welles and the invasion, alien invasion over the radio. For some reason, I can't. Do you remember the name of that? War of the Worlds.
War of the World. Yeah, there we go.
So people were freaking out, listening to this on the radio, and he had to go on and say that, this is fake, and that helped, spur some sort of guidelines and maybe rules about journalists. If you post something like that is fake, you have to say that it's fake. But yeah, with the climate the way it is, there's so much information to be had left and right, and there's a lot of agendas on this side and on that side. So people have to work a little bit harder to, discern what's going to be correct and what's going to be right.
And so silly.
That's tough.
Yeah, and also it's silly. I mean, I think that they still play War of the Worlds, mainly overseas, on anniversaries, 50 year, 20, 75 year, things like that. And I think that they still trick people. People still call into radio stations and go, is this really happening? Do I need to go somewhere? Right. And it still scares people. It's crazy for that kind of thing. So there's that one. It's certainly something that we're not going to be able to get away from. But again, although I will say that there is technology, I know that it works with Photoshop. We've talked about artificial intelligence on the show before, and a lot of companies are already putting development into AI that's going to be able to go over a picture pixel by pixel and determine if something is fake or how likely it is to be fake. So AI taketh, AI giveth. Hopefully, machine learning can help us differentiate these photos before we have to. So there's that one.
No, it's true. AI is very important.
Yeah, so there's that one, and then I have one more kind of current event kind of thing. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. They Shall Not Grow Old. Peter Jackson, he took footage from World War One, and this actually branches into a PSA, I think, by Tom Cruise, of all people. But They Shall Not Grow Old. Have you heard about this film that Peter Jackson's going to be releasing?
Yeah, I've seen a little bit about it, and it's pretty interesting. I think World War One is one of the largest human events in history, and it doesn't get a whole lot of lot of coverage. There's
not a lot of footage
movies
though.
made
It's
about
very
it.
rare. Yeah.
Yeah, except for what was it, Battlefield One, the game
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
on it. So it's pretty important. It kind of goes way back to the coloring of black and white film. So it's kind of nice to see Peter Jackson kind of bringing this back into a more mainstream media. The coloring on it is much better than the technology that colored black and white from years ago. But I think it helps people connect with the people that gave so much in this horrible war, and to make us think before we end up. People who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. So I think this is a good thing. It's a good thing to see coming out.
Well, no, it's and definitely, I'm glad that you touched on the cultural aspects of it, but also because you are a graphics expert, to turn the footage, which I have to really think, I think it was shot on like 24, no, it was shot on like 48 frames or something like that. That's why whenever you see footage from World War One, it tends to be very jittery. It's very fast. Everyone looks like they're running a fast forward. They were using, and you've mentioned this technology on the show before, if you want to give a quick rundown before break, but they slowed it down and they adjusted it to 24 frames per second. But then to fill in all the individual gaps, that maybe that would cause it would look like a stop motion animation. They use that technology to essentially put a frame between two frames using machine learning, to smooth it out. So speak to that and why that's important.
It's kind of a retiming thing that's really advanced in software lately. Basically, a lot of old footage is hand cranked, so it may be not even a consistent speed throughout. But typically, I think they were at 16 frames a second, which plays back really, really oddly. So they have to basically take a look at every single frame and then interpolate some frames in between, like you said, to kind of smooth it out and bring it up to a 24 frame a second. Yeah. In addition to the colorization and all that kind of stuff, and filling in the gaps, it's ambitious. It goes back to film restoration, which is they would take celluloid and scan it and try to touch things up and paint things out that were scratched in the film. So it's a very advanced, very sophisticated type of restoration. And I applaud that. I think it's one of the better things that the film industry can do to sort of give back to culture and history.
Absolutely, and we're watching some of the footage here. Really, it takes it from looking like almost unwatchable, historical archive type. Like, why am I watching this? I'm not a history major. To the events of people's lives. It's actually very, very interesting, and I'm glad that he was able to do this. And then on top of that, and on top of that, there is a PSA. Let's see, how close are we to break? So, yeah, the same kind of technology. I guess it's being shipped out on a lot of televisions that are 4K and more modern televisions. The film industry, and in particular, I think it was Tom Cruise has a PSA about TV. And let's see, so Tom Cruise finally takes a stand on your parents' terrible TV settings. Motion smoothing. That's what Tom Cruise is advocating against. Man, again, we're coming so close. You know what? We're coming up to break. We'll be right back, everyone. We're talking with Dariush Derakhshani. He is, of course, our graphics expert, and we're gonna see if Tom Cruise is just Tom Cruise crazy, or if he really has a point here against rallying against motion smoothing. So everyone, stay tuned. More Computer America, and of course, more graphics. We'll get into the graphics cards next segment. We're going to talk the Radeon 3080. We're going to talk about the NVIDIA Titan RTX, and more. Everyone, stay tuned.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And everyone, of course, if you miss any part of today's conversation, it's been little all over the place, but everything's going to be in the show notes if you want to check anything out yourself. It's going to be really cool. And yeah, hey, of course, check out the podcast, today's show in its entirety, rebroadcast wherever podcasts are heard, including Google, iTunes, iHeartRadio. Those are usually the big ones, and then all the others as well. But yeah, let's continue on, everyone. Once again, Dariush Derakhshani, our graphics correspondent, and yeah, we have been talking about recent news, current events, things like that. But on top of that, one more current event that I can kind of think about at the moment, and Tom Cruise. He makes headlines sometimes for the wrong reasons. One of my favorite songs is by Jonathan Colton, "Tom Cruise Crazy." He's fun to pick on, but Dariush, as you said, kind of during the break, hey, he might actually have a point this time. And so talk about what he's talking about and why motion blurring, because this is a product of better technology able to do these things automatically. You think that as things progress, only good things would fall out of this.
I think it's true. I've turned that motion smoothing or whatever they call it on my TV on, and within 5 minutes I hated it and I turned it back off. I think it's a lot of sports is shot with high speed shutters anyway, which reduce motion blur anyway. But films, for a cinematic look, it changes it and makes it look like cheap video in a lot of ways, which is disappointing. So that's why I've turned mine off. And the point that they make in that PSA is actually pretty valid. I don't know if it's going to ruin your experience or anything like that, but it has a tendency of cheapening the look of something that's been shot carefully into something that's been more, a consumer level video camera, as opposed to the high-end professional cameras that they use for motion pictures. So I personally don't like it. It comes down to preference, but if you're a movie buff or cinephile, turn it off. Absolutely. You're going to get a better experience the way it was intended to be. But for fast action sports and stuff like that, it may make it a little sharper to see where the football is going, but otherwise, yeah, I'm not a fan of it. I turned mine off right away.
I don't think this is motion blurring. Motion blurring is something that we can speak to the difference of motion blurring, but this is I think this is a rudimentary form of motion interpolation, which we just talked about with the They Shall Not Grow Old with the World War I footage to standardize the frame rate between one another. It's the same kind of technology. It's just in this case, it's bad. In the footage that they're trying to restore, it's good.
Yeah, kind of. I think it's safe to say it's kind of the same sort of ballpark as what's going on here. It's basically looking at every frame, investigating every frame, and figuring out how to best present it so that there's no motion blur, there's no softness. Basically, it makes it a little bit crisper. Each TV set, I'm sure, does it differently, and I don't know the technology of exactly how they do it. But that's sort of my broad understanding is that they interpolate and they present the frames a little bit different because you look at TVs that are 120 or 240 hertz a second, they're flashing the same frame more than once.
Yeah.
To hit that 120 or to hit that 240, because things are 24, 30, 60 frames maybe with like The Hobbit. So that same frame is blinking on your screen 2 times, 3 times, 4 times to get those sort of refresh rates. So because they can do that, they also can try to sharpen up the picture and present it slightly differently than what you would see if it's projecting in a theater, for example.
Dariush, are you going to sit here on my show and say that the human eye can see more than 30 frames per second? I take offense to that.
Well, it's
a joke. Yeah, I swear it was a joke.
It's debatable, but yeah, we can't. We can also only see 16 to 17 million colors, but the experience that you see on your screen will change a little bit. You'll feel it. That's something that we say in the industry a lot, is change this animation or change that color just a little bit so it feels a little different. It's not a very tangible way of communicating, but I think a lot of people in the industry will understand what I'm saying when you feel it. So with motion interpolation, with this stuff on TV, it does make the TV look a little more stuttery, a little less smooth, but more crisp. But I don't like it personally. I think the motion looks too stuttery or too.
Right.
Stuttery is not a good term either, but a little too crisp, a little too, I don't know, something bugs me about it. It doesn't feel right.
So in this article I found, I guess Gizmodo gave a pretty good summary of it, but this last sentence really catches me because when you walk into the store, you walk into wherever you see televisions on display, and what are they playing? They're playing nature documentaries. They're playing maybe live sports. And they said that, quote, the function is helpful for stores trying to sell TVs with sports and nature programs often shown to entice customers. As such, motion smoothing tends to be on by default in showrooms. So, and when you pick up your TV, hey, that's what you get. Not good for Hollywood film, not good for 24 frames per second, but has its uses.
Yeah. And I was fantasy shopping for an OLED TV recently around Black Friday.
Yeah.
And I would stand, 4 or 5 inches away from the screen and really looking at it because there's so much processing that happens that it can do that. really boost the color. It looks unnatural. They really try to make it pop.
Yeah.
But in the end, if you're shopping for a TV, you want to look for something that looks natural and comfortable. And you should ask them to turn these features off if you don't like them, so you can really see it without all that processing added onto it.
I thought you were going to say, it's like, yeah, I kept getting really close, but I couldn't buy any of them. They all had nose prints on them. And yeah, but no, it's but you're right. There's a lot of features. I think it's certainly come a long way from the days of just black and white TV on off.
Yeah.
There's features that they think are going to be good sometimes, and much like VSync. No offense, NVIDIA, but VSync, I turn it off every time by default. It just doesn't help me. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe some people will get into it, but I'm with you on that one.
By the way, I should mention this to everyone. Just a couple of hours ago, I need to go watch it after the program here. But the new Avengers trailer is out, so man, I totally missed that. So the Avengers Endgame. Spoiler alert, that's the name of the new trailer. But Avengers 4 Endgame, it's out. Probably shouldn't watch it here because last time I did something like that, I actually got a DMCA takedown. Fun stuff, I know. They I guess it's like within like the first 24 hours, so people don't kind of steal their thunder, or 48 hours. They don't like any kind of reproduction of that, so we'll watch it after the show. But I don't know. I just like movies, so there you go. So the Avengers, there you go. Motion smoothing. Check out your TV settings. Maybe there's something hiding in there that you don't know about. Okay. All that being said, let's see. We can move on to our next topic of conversation, and this has to do with graphics cards. Let's start with the old news first, and the old news being about the beginning of the week, Monday, if I'm not mistaken. Titan RTX. So this has, and I've seen comments all the way across the spectrum from saying, wow, what a beast of a card, to NVIDIA needs to be tied down and stabbed with a wooden stake. They are just the most evilest company ever for charging $2,500 for this thing. So, Darius, let's see, how should we approach this? I think the first thing, Titan. Explain the Titan line of graphics cards and how they fit into NVIDIA's lineup, and then speak to, I guess, the price tag and what do you think about $2,500?
The Titan cards are typically the top end of the gaming platform. That's the pinnacle of their cards. The Titan X and so forth have always been pretty expensive, anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500, where you can get 1080i for $700 or $800. So
yeah, somewhere around there.
There's a premium. The Ti wasn't as good as the Titan, but was pretty darn good and got fairly close to that performance. So without knowing exactly what the Titan RTX is pulling in for numbers and for real world benchmarks, it's hard to say how much better it's going to be than the 2080 Ti cards that are really good right now, or debatably really good right now. $2,500 is about the top end of what professionals pay for NVIDIA's Quadro professional cards. So I'm wondering if they're going to bump up and have even more high-end Quadro card now that the Titan's out.
And just real quick, this article that we have from Gizmodo says that they have something called the Quadro RTX 6000, which is running you about $6,300.
There we go.
Yeah, so, and that seems to be the new one. And I guess you could also quickly explain the difference between a Titan and a Quadro. I mean, obviously 3 times, you think you get 3 times better graphics card for maybe a gaming setup. What is the Quadro? Because I don't think a lot of people have heard of that.
If you want something for a gaming setup, do not get a Quadro card. Hands down, do not. Quadro is meant for a professional workstation. It has, it's not necessarily 3 times when you say 3 times better, we've got to define what better means. It doesn't mean that it's going to be 3 times faster. The Quadro line of cards are definitely more expensive than their counterparts. Like the 1080 Ti compares to about the Quadro, I'd say 5 or 6,000. Probably the 5,000. The Titan X or the Titan V. No, actually, no, the X compares to the Quadro 6,000 in the same architecture family.
Right.
But it's twice as expensive as the Titan card, and that's because of a lot of the certification and development that goes into making that card absolutely perfect. All the silicon, all the coding, all the drivers, error checking memory, in some cases more memory. These things are very useful for professional workstations. I remember I had an older Quadro card that I put into my son's gaming computer thinking that, he's going to have a pretty beefy machine. And I soon discovered that the speed was there, but unfortunately the support for the newest DirectX was not. So he wasn't actually able to run, I think it was Star Wars Battlefront.
Yeah.
And I had to, pop that card out and give him a gaming card instead. So there's a significant difference between the Quadros and the GeForces. The hardware, I've read a lot and heard a lot of people talking about, well, my GeForce is pulling in numbers just as fast, if not faster, than the comparable Quadro card when doing like hardware rendering or frame rates with 3D applications. And that's kind of true in some cases. So I get asked that a lot. Why should I buy a Quadro for hundreds, if not $1,000 more than a GeForce card? Or why should I get a laptop with a Quadro card for $1,000 more than a gaming version of the same laptop? And I don't have a perfect answer for that, aside from saying, if you're professional and you rely on this being mission critical, and you need to make sure that all your professional animation or modeling packages will run flawlessly, then you get the Quadro. Otherwise, that distinction, you could, as a hobbyist, do great. I mean, as a professional, you could do great on a GeForce card, but you run the risk of some things not working as fast or as great or being as stable. Maybe your renders drop out because the memory didn't get error corrected. It's the minutia that I think separates the chaff here.
Well, yeah, and that's definitely a good point. I read one of the comments, and I mentioned this a couple days ago, but I read one of the comments, and I think it puts it pretty nicely, where take rendering software such as maybe AutoCAD, the NVIDIA Titan RTX. It's certified to work with AutoCAD, whereas the 2080 Ti, it says that it can work, it's compatible, but it's not certified. I think that's the big difference, is that it's really, and of course that's the Titan, and then of course you go into Quadro. The Quadro are definitely certified to run that kind of software. Like the difference between certified and capable, that's the difference, I think.
Yeah, that's one of the big differences. The development time and effort that goes into certifying Quadro cards is pretty intense. I think hardware-wise, again, I think they use a higher class of silicone, because this is all basically melted sand, right? So there's going to be variances in how well a chip performs, just like a CPU. I just literally, I have a motherboard sitting on my desk with a brand new 9900K CPU. I'm going to build this out for my new workstation. That CPU, when it comes off the fabrication line, if there's a little bit where it's not performing to the best of its abilities, it gets kind of rebadged as an 87 or I'm sorry, 9800 or 9700. They turn off a couple of cores and things like that happen. So this stuff is all open to some measure of failure.
Yeah.
So this is some of the best of the bunch that they're able to fabricate, and that's one of the other distinctions. And it's hard to justify that to somebody on a budget and say, well, it's certified.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, well, why am I going to pay another $800 for a certification? Don't, at that point, don't. But if your business is relying on that card to finish its task without failing, then that $800 seems like a good bet.
I remember when the Titan line of graphics cards first came out, we had NVIDIA on the show, and they point blank said to us, this, sure, you can run games on it. And I think that philosophy is still out there, but they said this is for supercomputers. This is for governments and institutions who want to build supercomputers. They're going to last decades. And if they invest in a Titan card, they are going to have minimal errors with their hardware.
Right. Yeah.
That's still the purpose.
And a lot of software is turning to CUDA or to OpenCL. It's basically doing a lot of GPU calculations as opposed to just relying on the CPU. So the graphics card is steadily becoming more of a central part of a computing platform. So you can have a computer with a couple of different Xeon processors that have many cores in it, but you can also pack that thing with 2, 3, maybe 4 video cards that have a lot of additional processing power that doesn't necessarily go to making the screen look good, but goes into a science visualization or calculating some crazy algorithms and stuff like that. So these are not your dad's video cards anymore. They end up being a little bit more general purpose than they used to be, even just 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, and of course, looking at the numbers here, they give a couple side-by-sides. First one, CUDA cores, 4608 versus 4352. I'm just going to name numbers. You don't have to really remember them. 576 to 544, 72 to 68. The first one being the Titan RTX, the second one being the 2080 Ti. You're looking at, in some cases, 10%, 15% number increases here or there. 72 to 68, not that big of a jump. Overall, you're looking at, like I said, 10, 15. I think NVIDIA itself is claiming a 15 to 30% performance increase over the 2080 Ti. I mean, that's also kind of what you expect. I mean, these things are really cool, and if money is no issue, that's great. But for twice the price, you're getting 15 to 30% performance, according to NVIDIA. In some case, less. It's the best singular, but if you're on a budget, and let's say your budget is one Titan, maybe 2 2080 Ti's is going to be more beneficial.
Absolutely. This is geared for people who absolutely need to have every bit of power that they can get out of that space in their computer.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it just at twice the price, just over twice the price, it doesn't make sense at all for somebody like me to buy that card over the TI version of it if I'm building another gaming machine or something, let alone going to the Quadro. So it's you have to calculate your own cost of performance, benefit analysis, and all that kind of stuff. But for me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, paying twice as much for 10, 15% performance doesn't really float my boat.
Right, but in a lot of cases, let's say that you own one of these massive computers that let's say you're Amazon and you actually sell processing power and things like that to companies. Hey, makes all the sense in the world. You're going to make your money back. No,
I think so. I think you're right about that.
So there's that one, and wow, that took more time than I thought. Let's quickly jump over to Radeon RX 3080. These are rumors. These have not been confirmed. I think, as I said before, AMD is probably going to be waiting on CES to really make their big announcements. I've been contacting a lot of companies behind the scene. It's creepy. How many are saying, sorry, we don't want to come on the show for free publicity because we are waiting for CES? And it's like, dude, you're going to be one of 16,000 companies displaying your wares. I think you can talk about it 2 weeks early, but they're like, no, we want to wait. Whatever. My point is AMD Radeon RX 3080, the rumored next card from AMD. And, and of course, Dariush, you know that AMD, they've been competitive, or, at least they've shown signs of life over these past couple of years. And with this card, they're not trying to topple the Titan. They're not trying to displace NVIDIA as the best singular graphics card. But what do you think about a card that is compatible with the 2070, not the 2080 or 2080 Ti, but the 2070, which is perfectly admirable? I think
it's
a
a
lot more people are going to get the 2070 than the 2080. That's obvious. Compete with the 2070 at half the price. What do you think about that?
Do
Rumors
it
again, but yeah.
Absolutely, do it. I think this is where AMD has always shined in the graphics card, is bringing the best value for the bang for the buck, as they say. I think they've always been very astute in figuring out how to get their cards in the right sort of price point.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can get 2070 performance is really important. Now, question is, the 3080s are going to have the real-time ray tracing that the RTXs are purporting to have as well. So that's important. That's an important distinction. But if you're comparing apples to apples, but one apple is half the cost, I think it's a great deal. But again, AMD doesn't go for the top of the line crown, but they consistently come in with the best value crown over and over again. So I think this is an important shot for them across the RTX bow. So I think that's how they're going to be able to keep the pressure up.
And do you know off the top of your head? I'm going to look it up. Let's see, the RTX nanometer line. Do you know if they're still on the 14, 10, or do you know what?
I think they're still on the same
12
processor
maybe?
size, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
Myself.
So
Looking that
yeah.
up too.
Yeah, so the point of that is that AMD is claiming that they're 7 nanometer. This is what they're going to be debuting with the 3080, and 7 nanometer means that they can fit more onto less space. It's more energy efficient. Overall, it's just a strict upgrade. So AMD is going to be one of the first companies to actually do this, even before Intel, Nvidia, Apple, anyone. It would be a pretty big, improvement, and that could be a factor.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Intel's been trying to get to 9 for a while now.
Yeah, they're still on 14. I think they were trying to drop down to 10, and then, but yeah, they just haven't been able to do it.
Yeah, I finally just pulled the trigger and I got fed up waiting for the next generation and just went with the 9900K. Seems like it's got a good power to it over my 6700K. So I guess my son's going to get my old computer now.
The 9900K definitely looks very cool, but just from a nerd who follows this, it feels like they're being pressed up against that ceiling and like the last gasp of breath before they finally just have to bust it open.
They have to move to new fabrication. Yeah, they've got to get to 9.
Right, there you go. And so there's that. I'm not really sure about NVIDIA, but the AMD, definitely looking at the 7 nanometer. Very, very cool. Hopefully they can do it. Wow, we're fresh out of time. I wanted to bring up one more topic, which was the ability to put an NVIDIA RTX graphics card into a laptop, because we are going to be seeing a lot of that at CES. Dariush, next month when you're on, we'll of course coordinate that. We're going to have a lot to talk about, because there's going to be a lot of hardware shown out at CES.
It sounds good.
All right, perfect. And everyone, and by the way, we're going to be partnering with a site. They are on the show often, called PopZara. They will be helping us out at CES. We will be covering it as best we can. And then over the next couple of months, we'll be having all those companies here on the show to talk about what they debuted. It's going to be a lot of fun. In the meantime, Dariush, what's going on with you? What are you up to? And I'll give you this chance. Tell everyone happy holidays, because this is the last time you'll be on this year.
That's right. Yeah. Happy holidays and New Year to everybody. Things are going smashing, so I hope everybody's happy and healthy.
Oh, perfect. And very well said. And everyone, we're going to have a link to Dariush's Twitter. Give him a follow and keep abreast about what he's doing. And in the meantime, Dariush, looking forward to having you back on. Everyone, have a great weekend. Big snowstorm coming across the country. Be safe and don't get hurt. Join us here Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.